This is Quarina, and you're listening to Bold, Brown and British, a weekly podcast where we discuss what it means to be a brown person in a Western world. We've spoken about colorism, third culture identity, and dating, amongst many others on this podcast. So if this sounds like the type of content that you want to hear, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also message us on Instagram. The handle is @BoldBrownAndBritish, or drop us an email via our website at www.boldbrownbritish.com. So without further ado, let's get on with this week's episode.
Okay, samosas, let me ask you this. Who are you, really? Like, if we strip away the colonial hangover, the societal pressures, and the need to fit into this neat little box labelled acceptable brown person in Britain, what's left? Are you the spicy, unapologetically, fully authentic you? Or are you the watered-down chai version of yourself? Still brown, but missing that true kick. Oof, yeah, I know. I went in straight away, didn't I? But sometimes we need to feel that punch, don't we? Because let's be honest, decolonizing our identity isn't a casual weekend activity. This is a deep, complex, and frankly messy work. But you know what? It's work worth doing. So today we're going to break it all down. Grab your samosa, or let's be real, your third cup of chai, and let's dive into what it really means to decolonize our identity as a brown people and modern British society. We'll talk about the colonial baggage we carry, how it affects our daily lives, and most importantly, how we can, as Taylor Swift says, shake it off like an auntie's shaking off unsolicited wedding proposals for her 30-year-old son. Step 1. What even is decolonization? Let's start with the basics because, as any good auntie will tell you, you can't make biryani without knowing your masalas. Decolonization, at its core, is about removing the influence of colonial powers from our identities, our systems, and even our mindsets. It's about reclaiming what's been taken, or should I say stolen, and rewriting the narrative for ourselves. When I say colonial influence, I'm not just talking about British rule in India or the whole let's steal your spices and your Kohinoor diamond, but pretend we're helping you situation. I'm talking about the lingering mindset that tells us we're somehow less than, that our languages, our skin tone and our food and our culture, it's all too much, too foreign, too brown. Let me give you a personal example. Growing up, I remember feeling really embarrassed about bringing dal to school for lunch. The smell of turmeric and cumin would fill the classroom, and suddenly my very existence felt like an act of rebellion. I didn't want to be the weird curry kid. I wanted to be the sandwich kid. But why? Why did I feel the need to erase the very thing that made me, me? Colonialism isn't just taking our land, it took our confidence. It made us question our worth and why decolonizing our identity is so crucial, basically, because it's about reclaiming our power and our pride and our unapologetic, samosa-loving selves. So let's get into how this baggage manifests in our everyday lives. Spoiler alert, it's not always obvious. Colonial hangovers can be sneaky, like that auntie at that wedding who's silently judging your outfit from across the room, but somehow managed to disguise it as a compliment. Ooh, you've gone for a modern look. How bold. You know what she means. Let's break it down. Have you ever felt the pressure to prove that you're one of the good ones? You know, the kind of brown person who's polite, hardworking, and doesn't make too much noise. This isn't just a random personality trait some of us has decided to adopt. It's the colonial mindset at play. The good immigrant narrative stems from the expectation that as non-white people in Britain, we must earn our place here. It whispers things like, you can belong and only if you tick the right boxes. Those boxes usually include being overqualified, overachieving, and hyper-respectful. Heaven forbid we demand equity outright, or worse, show any anger at injustices. because we might be labelled difficult or ungrateful. And this isn't just a societal thing, it's in our heads too, because how many of us feel that we have to work twice as hard just to be seen as competent? How many of us hesitate to express frustration, dissatisfaction at work, worried that we'll be labelled as too emotional, too aggressive, too much? The pressure to prove our worthiness comes from a deep-rooted colonial idea that we should be grateful for being here, as if our existence is a favour rather than a right. And it's a trap, because no matter how perfect we try to be, the goalposts will always move. The truth is, we don't need to earn our space. We belong here just as we are, chai-stained teeth and all. Number 2 is the fair and lovely obsession. Let's talk about colourism, the ultimate colonial legacy. And we can't have this conversation without acknowledging the damage caused by British Empire's obsession with whiteness. I kind of spoke about this a little bit in our previous episode, so if you haven't, check that out. But basically, during the colonial rule, the lighter skin was equated to power, prestige, and wealth, while darker skin was pushed to the margins, literally and figuratively. And here we are, decades later, still grappling with this nonsense. The global obsession with fair skin isn't just a preference, it is, again, a colonial hangover that's seeped into every corner of our lives. You see it in Bollywood films where the fair-skinned heroine gets the hero. You see in matrimonial ads where families openly advertise for fair brides, as if a woman's melanin has anything to do with her ability to be a good life partner. And let's not forget the billion-pound skin lightening industry that thrives on our insecurities. Fairness creams like Fair and Lovely, or as I was conveniently rebranded to Glow and Lovely to dodge criticism, are a stark reminder of how deeply ingrained this issue is. The message is clear. Fair skin equals beauty, success, and desirability. But here's the thing. Our melanin is a gift, not a flaw. Every shade of brown is beautiful, whether you're chai latte or deep espresso. Colourism also reinforces systematic inequality. In many communities, darker-skinned individuals face discrimination in employment, education, and even relationships. It's an uphill battle to dismantle this mindset, but it starts with us. Let's ditch the fairness creams, celebrate our natural tones, and remind everyone that the sun loves us enough to give us an extra glow. Number 3, the language complex. Raise your hand if you've ever been embarrassed to speak your mother tongue in public. Raise your hand high, because don't leave me hanging, samosas. I'm raising my hand. You know that feeling when your parents call you on the phone and you instinctively lower your voice as you respond in Gujarati, Urdu, Bengali, or whatever your language might be? Yeah, we've all been there. This is another sneaky remnant of colonial rule. The British made English the language of power, commerce, education, sidelining our native languages as inferior or uncivilized. Over time, this led to the idea that fluency in English is the ultimate mark of intelligence, success, and modernity. Meanwhile, speaking our native tongues has been framed as something rural, outdated, or even embarrassing. Let's not forget how this mindset affects our relationships. Many of us were discouraged from learning or speaking our ancestral languages as kids because our parents wanted us to fit in, to avoid being teased at school. Let's be real. Some of us were teased. Shout out to every classmate who thought mimicking an Indian accent was comedy gold. Spoiler alert, wasn't. But here's the truth. Multilingualism is a superpower, not a flaw. Being able to switch between languages is a skill that many people can only dream of. When you speak to your mother tongue, you're not just communicating, you're connecting with your history, your culture, your roots. And it's a reminder that your identity is so much bigger than any one country or culture. So, samosas, let's stop apologizing for our cultures and our languages, whether speaking in Tamil at the grocery store, singing in Bengali at karaoke night, or slipping into Punjabi mid-conversation because no English word quite captures the vibe. Let's own it. Let's make our languages visible, proud, and loud. Because after all, The British didn't take everything. They couldn't take the words we carry in our hearts. Bonus, internalized colonialism. I wanted to add a bonus layer here because colonial baggage doesn't just exist externally. It lives in our heads too. It's that little voice that tells you, don't be too brown. It's the one that keeps you second guessing wearing a salwar kameez to a public event, or keeps you from packing your favorite homemade curry to work because you don't want to be that person. This internalized colonialism can be the hardest to tackle because it's so deeply ingrained. We've been conditioned for generations to shrink ourselves, to blend in and to assimilate. But here's the thing. Shrinking doesn't make us invisible. It just makes us smaller versions of ourselves. And we deserve to be fully, unapologetically us. So, samosas, colonial baggage isn't just historical. It's here in our everyday lives, shaping how we think, act, and see ourselves. But awareness is the first step. Once we recognize these patterns, we can start the work of breaking free. And trust me, the freedom will be your full, authentic, brown self. Trust me, the freedom to be a full, authentic brown self, that's freedom worth fighting for. What do you think, samosas? Do any of these points resonate with you? I'm sure there's more to add here because, after all, colonial baggage is as layered as a flaky samosa crust. Now that we've packed and unpacked some of this baggage, let's talk about how we can start decolonizing our identity, because it's not enough to just recognize the problem. We've got to take action. Bold, brown, and unapologetic action. It's time we reclaim our bit to ourselves that we've been told to hide, embracing what makes us beautifully unique and kicking the colonial mindset to the curb. Because that's where real transformation begins. So how do you do that? Step 1. Embrace your culture. Whether it's food, fashion, or festivals, stop dimming your cultural light to make others comfortable. Bring your biryani to work. Wear your sari to the party. Blast your Bollywood playlist in the car. Okay, note to self, maybe not the entire Kabhi Khushi Kabhie Gham soundtrack, but you get the point. Let's stop apologizing for the things that make us, us. Our culture is vibrant, complex, and filled with richness, and it deserves to be celebrated, not hidden behind some beige, palatable versions for the approval of others. Do you know how many people would kill for a taste of authentic samosas or a glimpse of a desi wedding? You're not the other. You're the main event, my samosas, so live it up. And this doesn't mean the big obvious things like food or clothes, even though I know I mentioned it. It's in the little things too. Your slang, your mannerisms, the way you nod your head or roll your eyes are that oh so desi way. That's all part of who you are, so embrace it unapologetically. Step 2. Learn your history. Decolonization starts with education. Take the time to learn about your roots, not the watered-down colonizer-approved version, but the real, raw history of your people. Because here's the thing, when you know where you come from, it's a lot harder for anyone to make you feel like you don't belong. Start by having those deep conversations with your parents, your grandparents, your elders in your community. Ask them about their stories, their struggles, triumphs, and experiences that shaped your family's journey. Then take it further. Read books, watch documentaries, and dig into the history of your homeland that often gets swept under the rug in Western curriculums. Because it's not about colonial benevolence and railroads. Knowing your history also means understanding the colonialism has shaped and sometimes warped our cultural practices and beliefs. It allows us to separate what's authentic from what's imposed on us. When you're armed with knowledge, you're reclaiming the narrative, piece by piece. And step 3, challenge narrative. Speak up when you see colonial mindsets at play, whether it's calling out colorism in your community or pushing back against stereotypes in the media. Use your voice. Remember, silence is compliance, and we're not here to comply, we're here to disrupt. Challenging the narrative doesn't always have to be confrontational. It can be simple as sharing your perspective with a friend, writing a blog post, doing a podcast episode, supporting creators and businesses that are always flipping the script. Every act of resistance, no matter how big or small, chips away at the colonial mindset and makes space for a more authentic, inclusive narrative. Remember, this isn't just about being woke for the sake of it. It's about being true to yourself and your heritage. It's about creating a world where your kids and their kids can grow up proud of their roots without ever feeling the need to dilute or hide who they are. Decolonizing your identity is an ongoing process, but it's one worth committing to. It's not about rejecting the colonial narrative. It's about replacing it with your own. It's about walking into any space with head held high, knowing that you carry generations of resilience, strength, and beauty in your DNA. So go ahead, Samosas. Take back what's yours. Now, I know what you're thinking. Quarina, this all sounds great, but it's easier said than done. And you're right, because decolonizing your identity isn't easy. It's uncomfortable, it's emotional, and sometimes it really feels like an uphill battle. But let me tell you this, every time you reclaim a piece of yourself, you're not just doing it for you. You're doing it for the generations that came before you and the ones that will come after. You are breaking the cycle. You're rewriting the story, and that's so powerful. So let's make a pact. Let's stop carrying the colonial baggage that isn't ours to hold. Let's decolonize our identities, reclaim our narratives, and step into our power as bold, brown, and beautifully British individuals. And the next time someone asks you who you are, don't hold back. Say it loud, say it proud, and maybe throw in a little spice for good measure. And that's it for today's episode, Samosas. I hope this chat has left you feeling inspired, empowered, and maybe a little spicy. If you love this episode, don't forget to share it with your friends, your family, or that one cousin who's always talking about fair skin. You know the one. As always, sending you love and spice. Until next time.
Oh, Mikey, you made it till the end. I'm so happy. Well, listen, if you enjoyed what you heard and you want to hear more, subscribe to the podcast on, wherever you're listening to this. We are on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, TuneIn, Alexa, you name it, we're there. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on an episode. We also are on Instagram, which houses loads of behind-the-scenes audio snippets, polls, memes, and ways for you to get involved. So go follow us on Bold, Brown and British. That's the handle. And until next time, keep safe, my wonderful samosas.